Welcome back to the Student Hub Live Moving On and Summer Study Special. In this session, we're going to look at revisiting material from the past for the future. And one thing we love at Student Hub Live is advice from real, living, breathing students. And I've got Gemma here, who's in her final year of her psychology degree. And we've been talking about this earlier. In fact, Gemma, the tutors and academics have all been saying revisit material from the past, and we've spoken about this beforehand to prepare for this section, and I'm really hoping that you can give us some useful advice, because in theory it all sounds well and good. And I remember when I was studying, I always used to think, oh, it's summer, right, I'm going to definitely do it this year, and I very often didn't. So what's your advice then for students about getting some of the stuff that they've been doing and picking it up over the summer, and how to sort of break that down into nice bite-sized chunks?
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing to say is just relax a little bit after you've finished your EMA, and one of those would be fantastic, Karen. I mean, to celebrate with a cocktail.
Well, we thought we'd have a... Oh, you don't have one? Oh,
no, so I think I need one to celebrate. Yes. That's the first thing.
What do you think? What have you just done?
Sorry, what have I just finished?
Yes. What have you to celebrate?
Oh, I'm celebrating finishing my EMA. I've got that in, right, so I just...
Can we have one of the EMA ones, please? The EMA cocktail, yes. Would you like fruit in that?
Oh, definitely.
Definitely, yes, please.
Sounds good. So yeah. I'm as free as a bird for the summer.
Free as a bird, that sounds great.
So I think I might call my cocktail Free as a Bird, if that's okay.
When it comes, well...
But moving on from being free as a bird, yes, there is a little bit of focus then to sort of think about for the next module that you're taking.
Yeah.
And I think that looking back at some of the comments and the feedback that you have is important to then go into your next module feeling comfortable.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, although you do sort of get this sense of I'm not going to do anything over the summer because I deserve it, but also it will help to make your next module a little bit easier if you take stock of some of the feedback that you've had.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm going to try and do that.
Good. Okay, now, in psychology, I mean, we're talking very broadly here, but Jamie, for example, is looking at level 3 psychology, and so he was asking some questions earlier about this. But very often students, and I know I teach in psychology, they've just been writing reports, for example, then they're off to do their exam. They're not going to go and look at those reports over the summer, and probably in year 3, they're going to have to write reports again. Yes. So very often, as we've sort of been talking about, the degrees are scaffolded, so you're often building on the same skills, the same sort of essays, reports, short answer questions, whatever it might be, over and over again. And of course, having done those before, you'll get loads of useful feedback, but very often, just before an EMA or exam, you might not want to sort of relook at that material. Now, you think it's very important to do that when you've got a clear head and you're not right in the middle of the task. So can you talk us through why it's good to do that at a different time to when you're writing your next report, for example, or essay?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, as so many students know, you are time poor when you're doing your studies. Yeah. It's really, really hard to keep up with the reading, to keep up with your writing, your essays, or whatever it is you're doing. So I think when you come to that point where you've got enough time to really think about the feedback, you know, it's good to do that. It's good to take stock. It's good to reflect, because you get a really good idea of the techniques you're really good at, and you can take comfort in the fact that you are good at certain things and you can keep doing that. But also to think about, right, what do I need more development on? And the summer's a good time just to dip into that, I think. For me, I found that report writing wasn't my strongest area. When I was getting the feedback, I wasn't getting as good a marks on the reports as I was on the essays. Right. So I knew that I just need to think about that a bit more, and when you've got time, you're going to do that a whole lot better and take it forward with you into the next one.
It's also hard when you've just maybe got your mark back, and if it is disappointing, it's really difficult to look at that feedback, because you're just thinking, oh, they didn't understand me, or I just feel so rotten about this, or this, that and the other. So it's nice to sort of have that space between having written it where you're a little bit more removed from it and you can be more objective.
Yeah, definitely. But
you also said you look at the things you've done well as the things you've done badly. So how do you do that?
Yeah, well, you know, it is realising that the feedback is there to provide both security that you're doing stuff right and stuff to help you develop and then do it better next time. So I think it's not being hard on yourself when you read that, and don't look over the good stuff, because it's really easy to go, oh yeah, I've done that right, I've done that.
But what
and
do you
then
do
stick
with the
there.
good stuff? Like, what have you been good at, and then how has that helped you?
Yeah, so things like I've had some really good comments from tutors around how I connect one paragraph to another, so my connecting words and connecting sentences. So I feel that makes me feel really good that I'm confident that I can continue doing that, and I don't need to change anything there. So if you don't need to change certain things, then you can concentrate on the stuff that you do need to then develop a little bit more and play around with how you do that. So it's taking hold of that and saying, right, I'm going to continue doing those good things.
And how do you remind yourself of those things then? Do you have strategies, or do you write things down? How do you know then that you're good at those, so you're not going to worry about those, but you are going to worry about this?
Yeah, I don't write them down. I must say that I suppose I keep it in my head because it makes me feel good to keep the things that I am good at in my head. They stay there. So I know when I'm writing things, I'm thinking to myself, right, I'm strong there, I can do this, I can carry on doing that. I've also had some good comments around how I structure essays and the different ways of arguing, sort of zigzag pattern of arguing. So I feel quite confident that I keep those in my head. So it's really the stuff I need to develop on that I've got to think a bit more about. So making some notes around those and just testing new things, because you'll also find that different tutors may well sort of like different things. So I think it's getting to know your tutor as well, and that feedback is really important, to get to know your tutor and how you move forward with them as well.
No, absolutely. Now, when did you start sort of doing this? Because you sound very conscientious, but has it always been that way, or...?
No.
No. Okay.
No, I think I really started to think about feedback a lot more in level 2, because it felt that much harder. And I think level 3 started to scare me a little bit. So it was, OK, how can I really make myself feel more comfortable in level 3? And taking notice of your feedback at level 2 really helps, because you've got the experience of level 1, you know how much harder, what a step up it's been at level 2, and you know that they are, over each level, you're being built up to do better and better and get more competent at those areas. So level 2 was a real turning point for me, and I took a lot more notice then.
Because you wanted the grades, they were important for your career aspirations. And I think we were saying the other day that it was only when you started sort of not doing so well at certain things that you thought, actually, maybe I'd better look at this. Tell us about that. Yeah,
so I think I was getting some really good marks, particularly on essays, because that's where I found my strengths were. But then when the different parts came along, like the reports, and there was a presentation that I didn't feel that comfortable with either, and my marks were a bit lower, and that's where I sort of started to think, well, I should have taken a bit more notice of different feedback, and not really think, oh, I'm doing well, so why would I bother looking at it? Because actually, you still should look at it, because you'll see things you are good at, but also there'll be comments just to say, right, maybe you should look at this, or think about arguing it a bit more from the other side, which then help you to just move forward with that. So it's important to look, even when you think you're doing really well, keep looking.
Yeah. Because there's some things that'll be specific to the task. Like some essays, a tutor might say, you could have introduced this theory or that theory or blah, blah, blah. Others will be like your linking words, and there'll be things that will happen again and again and again. How might you recommend that people sort of go through those, particularly things like reports, and sort of get the bits that they might need then for the future? What would you do? Would you look at them and sort of make a note of general points and ignore all the sort of content-related stuff? How would you filter out the stuff that could then be useful? Because not all of it is useful always.
No, that's it. I think the general stuff is really important, because that's transferable across the piece, isn't it? So understanding how you reference, for example, feedback in referencing is going to be really important across the piece. Thinking about structure, the words, the type of words you use, and for reports, it's obviously, we know it's using a different way of writing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, those general points I think I would really take notice of.
Yeah.
The other bits, you know, I think you can learn from them, but you can also leave them, I think, after that particular TMA has been done. I think you could perhaps just let that fall out of your mind and just keep the general points in.
Yeah. We asked people at home whether they've ever looked at TMA feedback at the end of the module. Now, 83% say that they have looked at TMA feedback at the end of the module. 67% do have material to catch up on. But this is a very interesting one. We said, how likely is it that you will look at it? And the majority, which is what I would say is somewhat likely. The options were very likely or not likely at all. But it's the somewhat likely that I think is interesting with 67%. HJ, what are people saying? Oh, a lovely hat.
Oh, thank you. I thought I'd try this one out. I'm not sure what the best occasion would be for this one, so I'm still trying to work that out. If anyone's got ideas in the chat, then let me know and help me decide what the best place to wear this hat is. But we're discussing a lot of tips as well, and we're very reassured having Gemma on as well. It's nice having a fellow student give us tips as well and know from experience, and that's what Davin said as well. If you get the opportunity to speak to students who've already done it or moved on to the next level, whether it's through the Student Association, they have lots of meetups that we'll post in the chat, or on Facebook, then that's fantastic. And Kelvin's just really excited to start his DD 102 and his BSc in forensic psychology, and a few of us are doing some pre-reading, so we're looking at articles, maybe TED Talks or little things to get us into the subject matter that we're looking at as well. So yeah, there's lots of great tips in the chat, and we really appreciate, as I said, Gemma coming along and speaking to us and let us know from a student perspective as well.
Excellent, thank you. And we've got your lovely cocktail,
Yes,
Gemma. So what do you think of that?
I think that's great, yeah.
And fruit.
Yeah, and fruit. Nice banana.
OK, so, right, I have to ask you this question then. How likely is it that you're going to look at stuff over the summer?
Yeah, at the moment I'm feeling like, because I am free as a bird, that I'm not going to look at it, but actually I need to make a conscious effort because I'm coming into my final module, and as you said, my grades are quite important to me. I need to just sort of maintain my momentum for the last module, and I think it's going to be one of the more challenging modules as well. So I do need to make an effort to go back through some of my feedback on particularly the reports, as you said, because report writing is quite key for the final module.
So how are you identifying what you need to do and what you need to go over? Because I'm assuming you're not going to go over everything.
No, I'm not.
You can't squash it all in.
No, absolutely. But there are some common themes coming into this final module.
Right, so how are you finding out what those are?
So I'm looking back at, so I'm coming into DE 300, and a lot of it's around the methods, the qualitative.
This is the final psychology project where you're doing a big piece of work.
Yeah, so there's a lot about methods, and we did a lot about methods in DE 200 as well. So I know that there's going to be some common themes between the two in the methods side. So I think for me, it's going to be taking hold of the materials from DE 200 and picking those up and just really highlighting.
Will you be picking up all of them?
No, I think I'm probably going to look at some of the things I've struggled with more so in DE 200, and some of that was around the more qualitative side that for me I'm going to pick up and look at again.
So you're doing that because you're going to do that again, are you?
I'm undecided at the moment, so we've got to decide on a final project, but I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do yet. So by looking at it again, I think it would just help me to consider where my strengths are, whether I should go down that route, and actually where my interests are as well, because do I want to push myself a little bit harder, or do I want an easier route because I'm going for something that I'm better at? I don't know.
And also, it sounds to me like there's this thing where the marks really, really matter, but also the degree matters on the whole. Like knowing those skills and that stuff gives you that confidence to then when you get out there, when you go and do your MSc or whatever it is that you go on and do from there on in, you say, actually, I know about those methods, even if I'm not using them, I feel confident in being able to understand them.
Yeah, and I think that's part of being a well-rounded graduate, isn't it? Is that even if your strengths aren't in one particular area, you know about each thing, and you've got a bit of an understanding. And if you need to, you can just pick up that foundation and build on that.
So you've pinpointed certain things like methods, and then how are you breaking those into bite-sized chunks? Because I know if you're anything like me, you think, I'm going to do all that over the summer, and then week 1, week 2, week 3, and then I've got this amount of stuff. And I know that if I don't break stuff down into tasks and chunks, it just seems so big I never actually pick it up in the first place. How are you going to actually do anything?
Yeah, well, I think I will just concentrate on, so picking one topic first of all, and then breaking that down into manageable chunks, and not worrying too much about the other topics. So having the books broken down in D200 is a great help, because you can just pick up one book and say, right, here's my focus. The chapters then are going to help me to break it down further. So I'll just pinpoint some chapters that I want to reread, and that can be my bedtime reading perhaps.
Okay, now that sounds great. And Carolyn says that, and these are lovely cocktails. I'm really sorry we can't give them to you. There's a problem with this virtual thing, but she says that all OU students deserve having cocktails, and indeed you do. And she says it should be OU policy, which I quite agree with.
Yeah.
But,
so we'll say cheers to the students.
cheers, but it's just not possible today. Unfortunately. But do get one yourself and send us a picture of it as well to studenthub@open.ac.uk, and we can pop it on the board for later. OK, the other thing it's important to do over the summer is to really relax and have some time off and celebrate your success, and also, I guess, reflect on some of the stuff you've done. We've heard about how it's all scaffolded really well, and you do have a lot more skills that you maybe don't know you've got. So how are you going to enjoy the summer and feel more confident?
Yeah, well, I think it's giving myself a pat on the back for I've done 5 years of study, and it's not been easy. So I think you do have to recognise your achievements. Really, really important, and just sort of enjoy some of the things, like reading for pleasure is going to be part of my relaxation, because there's been so many books that I thought, I really want to read it, but you inevitably pick up your study books instead, don't you? So recognising my successes already, thinking about where the end goal is, and for me it's occupational psychology. I know what I want to do with my future, so it's knowing that to get there will be fantastic. So it's then keeping focused on what do I need to do in order to get there. So if it is picking up a book over the summer, pinpointing some chapters that I just want to go over and just sort of making myself feel better about what's to come, I think that's what my plan will be.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant, Gemma. Thank you. Let's just go over to HJ. Sunglasses on the head this time.
That's it. This is sort of the casual look I'm taking this time round. But Caroline definitely wants some of these study martinis as well, and study cocktails. We're thinking an exam teeny, maybe margarita, or Caroline's got a good one, a TMA Ria. So, we've got lots of study-themed... we're thinking about Irish coffees as well, maybe towards the end after we've had all of these. But we're thinking it's a great motivation having the cocktails, definitely.
Excellent. Well, Gemma, what are you most looking forward to for your next module then? What's going to be key for you? What are you hoping to happen next when you start in September?
Yeah, well, I'm really looking forward to picking a topic area that I'm going to research. So, and if I can try and link it into work, I think that might be good. So I can spend some work time doing it.
Yes,
and
exactly.
and not just home time.
Applying it into your everyday life as well. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming along. It's been a really, really useful session. And I'm really glad we've been able to get you a cocktail. And you guys at home have had some brilliant ideas about cocktails as well. Our next session is going to be from the student support team, who are going to answer all your questions, and I've got a lot here, about registering for your next module, filling out your funding, etc. So all the logistics, and also the things that they can offer in terms of help and support and guidance over the summer months. It's a great time to call to check you're on the right track, check you're on the right qualification, and to suss out the options that might be available to you if indeed you have a choice on your qualification. But before we do that, I'd like to show you where they are. So we've got a short video here about the student support team, and then I'll be back to hear more from them. So do send us any questions you've got about registering for your next module. In the meantime, see you soon.